Welcome to Love Lies Nature. I'm your host, a man who's seen the highs and lows of love and life over the past 4 decades. With wealth and experience on my side, I've learned that not everyone deserves your trust or your heart. Join me as we explore the depths of human relationships, where love isn't always as it seems, and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. Welcome to Love Lies Nature, where every story has a lesson, and every lesson has the power to change your perspective on love and trust. I gazed at my wife of 5 years and declared, "Erica, it's either him or me. No middle ground." She sat beside my supposed boss, Paul Giannis, grasping his well-groomed hand until I spoke. As I uttered those words, she withdrew her hand, confusion and fear etching her beautiful face. She shook her head in surprise, causing her blonde hair to gleam in the lamplight. "Just for the weekend. Come Monday, everything returns to normal. Can't you enjoy some time with Lucy for now?" Lucy, real name Linda Johnson, was now seated next to me. She had been fervently trying to seduce me for the past few hours, a striking woman with luscious dark hair and one of the most enviable bodies globally, especially if you appreciate curves, which I certainly do. Rumors also circulate that she's top-notch. It was all part of Paul's grand scheme. When Erica and I were invited to this island for a weekend, the assumption was that Paul wanted to familiarize himself with me better. I'm a renowned author, and he acquired the publishing company that released my work about 3 months ago. However, the entire weekend was actually orchestrated for Paul to have relations with my wife. I'm an average writer, penning detective novels and thrillers featuring my protagonist Rick Rocker. He unravels mysteries of locked rooms and takes daring leaps off cliffs to elude lunatics. His love life is diverse and exciting, effortlessly charming beautiful women. A martial arts expert and trained assassin, he's a jack of all trades. He's a fantasy wrapped in a thin layer of reality, and my books sell reasonably well. Though the publishing house boasts several more significant and better-selling authors, I only have a captivating wife who caught Paul's attention. They crossed paths at a grand dinner and dance organized by Mr. Giannis for his group of writers and editors. The event made an impression on Erica, especially when she danced with Mr. Giannis to multiple musical numbers. Polished and a decade senior to 28-year-old Erica, he possessed long dark hair and a commanding presence. Observing their dance, I noted his adept movements. When the group took a break, they returned to our table, and Mr. Giannis expressed admiration for Erica, stating that she danced beautifully. I merely nodded, and my lack of response momentarily puzzled him. He then mentioned attending to other guests, saying it was a pleasure. Erica smiled and reciprocated with Paul. I scrutinized her, noting the swift transition from Mr. Giannis to Paul. I inquired if she was impressed with my boss, to which she replied positively, accompanied by a lascivious grin. I suggested, "Let's see whose wife he manages to snag." "Huh?" She turned out to be the wife of one of the editors, and during the evening, 3 more revealed they were editors' wives. All of this unfolded a month ago. I am David Lake, and I have no nickname. Standing at about 6 feet and weighing 169 pounds. I have curly brown hair, blue eyes, and am 30 years old. I am in good physical shape and athletic. Erica, too, is in good shape and practices fencing, a sport of skill and coordination. It was at a fencing lesson she taught that I first met her. I was conducting the usual research for Rick, who was to engage in sword fights in the next book, The Adventurer. I always undertake extensive research before writing an adventure book, a key selling point of mine. Rick doesn't do anything I haven't tried. My journey to becoming a writer was an ascent up a steep staircase. I graduated from high school and did not pursue formal education thereafter. In fact, since I was 10, I recognized myself as a writer. Throughout school, I penned story after story, with 2 published in obscure literary magazines during high school. Despite considering myself a serious writer, the need to work for a living arose after finishing school. I worked as a car mechanic, which I enjoyed. However, it didn't pay much, prompting me to start writing thrillers. Miraculously, one sold, followed by another and another. My current publisher signed me after receiving my first Rick Rocker novel. Sally Baker became my editor, and we quickly found common ground. A sweetheart but deeply married, she had elementary school-age children. While working on the second Rocker book, I met Erica. I completed the book after receiving advice from her about a sword duel, and our professional relationship evolved into several dates, eventually leading to intimacy. Our connection was immediate, and we both were delighted at the time. Erica operated her music store, surviving the initial stages of starting a business thanks to loans from a family trust. The store featured various instruments in one section and recordings of diverse music, along with sheet music in the other. So fencing is just a hobby. When we got married, she was 23, and I was as happy as I thought it was possible to be happy. We had plans for children very soon, but my publishing house was sold to Mr. Giannis, or Paul, as Erica calls him. One day, Erica came home excited, mentioning that next weekend Paul had invited us to his island. I stared at her, questioning why she was telling me instead of him. Erica explained that she ran into him last week, had lunch, and gave him a tour of the store. Today, he called with an invitation, expressing his desire to get to know the writers better. He suggested he would be in contact with me soon. Curious, I asked if he had been in contact with her and others. She reassured me, denying any inappropriate contact. I insisted on knowing why she didn't mention the lunch and shopping until today, and she admitted that he had made advances, but she blew him off. She kept quiet, thinking I might get in trouble given his ownership of the company. Now, with my apparent enthusiasm for the island visit, Erica disclosed that it would be just the two of us and a special friend of his, along with the staff, to get to know us better. I remarked cynically about his intentions to get to know everyone. Erica reassured me, stating that she could handle the situation and questioned if I was sure I could handle it. I assured her that everything would be great. However, I firmly declared my decision to decline the invitation, deeming it too dangerous for us. Erica pleaded for reconsideration, expressing that we would have fun, but I remained resolute, apologizing for my decision. She sulked for the rest of the evening. The next day, I called the main office and requested to speak with Mr. Giannis. He returned my call 15 minutes later, expressing anticipation for our weekend on the island. I declined, stating my discomfort. I mentioned that it seemed my wife knew about it before me, having had lunch with him, and she didn't inform me initially. According to her, he had been pestering her, and she was concerned about my reaction if I knew everything. He acknowledged his appreciation for Erica on various levels, citing her attractiveness and entrepreneurial qualities. He also mentioned my status as one of his most profitable writers. He claimed a desire to get to know both of us better. Despite his efforts, I maintained my stand, apologizing and asserting that it would not work. Disappointed, he expressed regret and stated that he wished I would change my mind. He mentioned keeping the weekend open. At that point, we parted ways. About 3 hours later, as I finished the next Rick Rocker book, my agent, Mark Levin, contacted me. I inquired about how he knew about my declining Mr. Giannis' invitation. Mark explained that the vice president of sales had called him, insisting that I should attend. He conveyed the potential consequences of under-advertising the new book, which would be detrimental to both of us financially. I questioned if there was a direct threat, and Mark clarified that, while not explicit, the threat was implied, emphasizing that Mr. Giannis played a tough game. I assured Mark that I would be in touch. After ending the call, I emailed Sally the conclusion of the new book along with some instructions. Later, she called, and we discussed the situation. In the meantime, I delved into researching Paul Giannis and his island. The island was named Hedonism, meaning pleasure in Greek essentially, Pleasure Island. As I delved deeper, I uncovered numerous stories of sexual misconduct on the island, including 2 divorce cases where the island was cited as a factor. However, these stories were published in gossip sources. Several photographs of Mr. Giannis with women, including 2 married ones, raised serious concerns for me. I located a picture of the place on Google Maps and familiarized myself with the entire layout. Situated off the coast of North Carolina, among islands popular for golf and beach holidays, this 2-mile-long and approximately 1-mile-wide island faces south and is shielded from the elements. It boasts 2 piers, multiple buildings, including a large house, tennis courts, and a swimming pool, leaving me puzzled about the need for a pool with great beaches around. I downloaded detailed photos and compiled them into a topographic map, concluding that a decent boat or seaplane would be necessary for the journey. Lacking both, I know people who possess them. On that Friday evening, Erica returned home promptly, appearing joyful. For dinner, I had a substantial chicken salad and white wine. As Erica changed, she mentioned hearing that I might have reconsidered not going to the island. I looked at her, remembering Paul's mention of changing one's mind at lunch. She clarified, "No, silly. He's in New York, and we're here in good old Virginia." He called me, mentioning his apartment in Milan, questioning how she knew he was in New York. I was met with a dismissal of paranoia. Erica explained that Paul suggested ordering his plane from the national airport if we agreed to go, but I reiterated that I hadn't changed my mind. Frustrated, Erica called me stubborn and suggested she could go alone. But I expressed concerns about enjoying myself and fearing potential divorce. I inquired about the possibility of her sleeping with him, to which Erica responded that she wouldn't go without me. I questioned how I could let her go alone, emphasizing potential consequences upon her return and the risk of our relationship being jeopardized. Erica affirmed her attraction, but assured me that we were still passionate, and she wouldn't take the risk. Believing her, I asked if she believed it. She replied, not to believe her at all, acknowledging that my trust was almost empty. An accidental spill of wine during this conversation led to laughter, hugs, and kisses, culminating in a trip upstairs lasting an hour. The unpleasant topic faded as we lay in bed. Erica asserted she wouldn't risk our relationship for a billionaire, seemingly assuming that we would go to the island. She commented that it was decided, tensing but not elaborating further. I inquired about her eagerness for the trip, urging her to provide the truth. After a moment of silence, she explained that it seemed exciting to communicate with such an important and influential person. She quickly clarified that she didn't mean be with, but rather communication. Reflecting on the situation, I noted that he was born into wealth and significantly increased his fortune, having a substantial head start. Similar to me, he pursued relationships with women. Despite my concerns, Erica affirmed her belief that everything would be good and fun. Considering that we were on the verge of trying for children, I recognized that this could be a potential time for Erica to stray. Doubting her honesty, I reluctantly agreed to the trip, warning Erica that if she ended up with this guy, it would be irreversible. She acknowledged the warning, expressing her gladness about the decision. Deciding that this warning was my last, I saw it as a test of her worthiness as a wife. Temptation would reveal the truth, and time would be the judge. The following day, I accepted the invitation and made contingency plans with my friend. I also checked the island's cellular communication availability. It was there. Still, as a precaution, I brought my satellite phone. The small plane from the national airport landed at a small airport. We were greeted by a man named Simon, who took us to the pier where we boarded a boat with a comfortable cabin and a powerful engine, driven by another man, Charlie. After about 40 minutes, we docked at the island. Erica and I spent time exploring the ocean and other islands. Simon briefed us on our location and island activities. He was a friendly, muscular guy with a wonderful smile and laugh, larger than me. Approaching the north side pier with Erica leading the way, Simon commented that I didn't seem very happy with the trip and suggested calling me Dave. I acknowledged having doubts, considering Simon's 6 years of working for Mr. Gines, expecting him to understand my reservation. When Simon inquired about why I came if I was so worried, I explained it was to see what happens. I also asked if he was Mr. Gines' bodyguard, to which Simon confirmed. Mentioning his presence was just a precaution, although Mr. Gines was capable of handling himself. Curious about Simon's preparedness, I asked if he was armed. Simon mentioned having a knife, but clarified that weapons were not allowed on the island. Expressing my distrust of the island's rules, I admitted to not being a very trusting person these days. Simon assured me that no firearms were needed, emphasizing that I wouldn't require one, no matter what happened. The three of us stood up, and Linda led us into a large double bedroom, closing the door behind us. In the room, we changed into swimsuits. I opted for regular trunks, while Erica chose a skimpy pink bikini. I expressed my opinion that the situation was excessive and questioned who Erica was trying to impress. She responded that she just wanted to look good, mentioning Linda's beauty. I countered, telling her she was no less beautiful. Although she disliked my tone, Erica refrained from responding. Upon descending, Linda wore an electric blue bikini similar in size to Erica's. I found both of them entirely enamoring. Exiting, we walked to the Southside beach on a wooden path. Mr. Gines was already in the water, swimming behind the breakwaters. Erica conveyed her reluctance to swim that far, a sentiment shared by Linda, who shuddered. Despite this, I dove into the surf, swam to where Mr. Gines was using his crawl, and joined him. He was a proficient swimmer for his size, easily matched by my water-friendly body type. Sometimes changing strokes, we swam until he tired, and I followed him back to shore. As we approached, a large wave knocked him off his feet, and I picked him up. He spat out seawater and sand, and I held him tightly as we walked out. His legs seemed like wet noodles, likely from overextending himself in our swimming competition. Quickly regaining composure, he pulled away, stating that he was fine and the wave had taken him by surprise. Approaching the sunbathing women, I inquired who wanted to swim. Linda immediately stood up, her top slipping slightly as she raised her hand. Both of us ran to the surf. Erica declined, so I pursued Linda. The rear view was impressive. She dove in like an Olympian, swimming beyond the breakwaters. I followed her, amazed at her superior swimming compared to Mr. Gines. Swimming alongside for a distance, she suggested, "Let's turn," which I did. Intrigued by the glimpse of flesh, I let her get about 4 meters ahead, observing her from the side. She turned over, floated on her back, and her chest swayed in and out of the water. An absolutely amazing woman. Given my proficiency in backstroke, I joined her, swimming alongside until she declared, "I've had enough," and swam back to the shore, pausing briefly to glance at her from behind. Upon surfacing from the waves, Erica and Mr. Gines were nowhere in sight, but my attention shifted to my snug swimming trunks. She joked about me being Superman, and I chuckled, suggesting there was only one way to find out. Taking a step toward me, she halted, stating that we couldn't do this here, no matter how much she wanted it. With that, she turned and ran. On land, she couldn't match her speed in the water, allowing me to easily catch up, and we proceeded to the veranda. Ours were missing, leaving me to ponder if this had already transpired. Linda inquired about my profession, asking if I really wrote. Confirming, I explained how I aimed for believability in Rick's actions. Linda stared momentarily, diminishing my hardness, but as expected, it returned. She possessed a commanding presence. I firmly told Linda to back off, emphasizing my marital status and expressing a desire to keep it that way. I asked her, as a favor, not to pursue anything further. Linda laughed, labeling me a tongue-tied writer. I muttered, "Oh my God," and suggested checking on Erica and Mr. Gines. I asked if it mattered to her, and she expressed interest, to which I replied, "Oh yeah, please." Glancing out the window, Linda sat on a sun lounger about 6 meters away. She looked up, smiled, waved her hand, and then reached for her shorts. I distanced myself from the window. Erica noticed my renewed arousal and fixed her gaze on me. Glancing out the window, she remained entranced for a while. A groan emanated from outside. Erica turned to me, exclaiming, "Oh my God, Donnie, forget about yourself. She can have me. I can give up on you. I will not give up." Erica teased that I had to beg Linda to give up, claiming it was the only chance I had. I mentioned that I had already tried begging, but it didn't seem to work. I speculated that Paul had given Linda a task so he could have me, finding the situation strange, but admitting it kept my interest. I promised Erica that I wouldn't give in to Linda's advances, expressing gratitude for her help. Erica observed that I was still erect and suggested that we could engage privately every 2 hours to alleviate the situation. The three of them huddled together in the living room and conversed. When I entered, they fell silent, and Paul suggested I have something to drink, maybe beer. I glanced at the bar, walked over, extracted a bottle of Corona, and popped it open. The others had wine, and we chatted for a bit. I then asked if they had finished discussing their plot or if I should leave, prompting an awkward silence. Linda's glance observed the others, mainly Erica, who looked at Paul. Paul then stated that there were no secrets. At that moment, Simon came in and declared that dinner was served, leading us into the dining room where dishes were arranged on the buffet table. It was a familial serving style. We sat at one end of a large table. They poured water, but I opted for my beer and refrained from water. Breaking the conversation, Paul addressed the tense situation I had created, and we engaged in friendly discussions about politics and baseball. Paul was a Yankees fan. Erica and I rooted for the Orioles and Nationals. Linda liked the Pirates, being from Jonestown. Simon served dessert, tiramisu. I skipped mine. Paul seemed to notice. Erica insisted that Paul not skip dessert, encouraging him to eat. Paul commented on keeping his waist in check and mentioned Erica having no fat in her body, claiming to have observed her while swimming and noting her preference for beer over water. In response to Erica expressing a lack of trust, Paul dismissed the idea of being medicated with something forbidden, considering it crazy. He encouraged me to eat and drink, while pushing a glass of water and tiramisu towards me. I smiled and offered the same to Paul. However, he sat with a stony face and instructed Simon to clear the table. Simon noticed the change in the water and dessert arrangement. picked up my untouched glass of water and tiramisu, and carried them away. Linda suggested moving to the courtyard for music and dancing. Erica and Paul remained silent. I stood up and extended my hand to Linda, leading her to the patio. Once there, she remarked on my apparent suspicion of Paul slipping something into the food and water. I acknowledged the possibility, but noted that Paul hadn't taken either himself and had them removed by Simon. The others joined us, and soft music started playing. I approached Erica, took her by the elbow, and led her away from Paul into the open area. We danced, and although Erica was initially shy, she eventually relaxed, pressing herself close to me. She whispered, "I love you, Donnie. Always." "I love you too, Erica." We continued dancing. The music concluded, and we joined Paul and Linda at a table. Soon, the music resumed, and Linda rose, offering her hand to me. She led me to the dance floor. We danced. Linda might have been the world's most captivating distraction. With her sweet, subtle fragrance and the contours of her body, she entranced me, eliciting immediate delight, as she always did. Observing Paul's hands on Erica's backside, I noted that she didn't push them away. Breaking away from Linda, I walked a short distance to Erica and Paul, standing there and observing them. Erica noticed and tried to move away from Paul, who persisted in keeping his hands on her. She gently pushed him on the chest, expressing a desire to avoid problems. Paul released her but took her hand, guiding her back to the table. Linda returned after me, and we sat down, with her sitting very close to me. Erica held Paul's hand as they sat side by side. Paul expressed disappointment in me, claiming that Linda was a fantastic lover and could provide me with one of the most powerful and delightful experiences of my life. He accused me of denying her this opportunity. I asserted that I had a wife and wouldn't entertain the idea of a trade. This brought us back to the initial discussion. Turning to Erica, I stated that it was either him or me, with no intermediary options. She withdrew her hand from his, but looked at me and suggested that it was only for the weekend and on Monday everything would be back to normal. She asked if I couldn't have some fun with Linda for the time being. Scrutinizing her, I questioned if she was serious and if I should take it as a yes or no, even if it meant it would be over between us. I firmly stated my refusal with a simple no. Despite not understanding why it should imply anything, I made it clear that I wouldn't entertain the idea. I extended my hand to her, and she took it. Pulling her towards me, I gave her the hottest kiss I could muster, running my hands up and down her body. Afterward, I pulled away, tears welling up in my eyes. I exhaled the words that nearly crushed me, stating, "The mere thought that you would agree to be with this guy means it's all over between us. It's done." I turned and headed for the stairs. She cried out, "No, Donnie, no." I reached the top of the stairs, grabbed my previously packed bag, and left through the back fire escape. I made the call and ran into the darkness, sobbing while running. I still heard screams. About 20 minutes later, I heard a plane. It landed near the southern dock, and my friend Todd Jacobs swam up to me, approaching him with Paul and Simon emerging behind me. Paul exclaimed that there was no escape and suggested I stay to calm my wife down, charging at me. I reached the pier. Paul, uncontrollable and unfit for a fight, splashed around in the water, shouting about firing me. Boarding the plane with Todd at the controls, we flew to a small lake near Dulles. A car was waiting for me there, and I paid Todd for the service, heading home to Alexandria. Expressing my disappointment, I remarked that she wasn't the woman I met and married, emphasizing that the woman I knew wouldn't succumb to the advances of another guy. Erica pleaded to see what happens next and suggested we continue enjoying great lovemaking, acknowledging that we both missed it. She stood up and removed all her clothes, prompting me to think about turning away, but ultimately not doing so. She led me upstairs. The only constant in our relationship, always present and likely to remain, is our complete sexual compatibility. I let her go home, and 10 years later, I picked up our kids from the school bus. Jessica, who is 8, and Robert, who is 6. Helen, who is 3, doesn't attend school yet. As a stay-at-home writer, I had help and the opportunity to write. It took over a year before I trusted Erica enough to let her stop taking the pills, and when she did, our lovemaking life flourished. The idea of her getting pregnant excited us greatly. I closed my contract with the previous publisher, and Sally and I moved on to something else. The first book I wrote was about adventures on an island, closely mirroring reality. It sold a considerable number of copies, securing a movie deal that included my 3 previous books. Paul couldn't complain about having truths in the new book, where he was cast as Socrates and met a fitting fate. Erica now owns 2 stores that generate some income, while I earn substantially. Before fully accepting her back, Erica signed a post-nuptial agreement ensuring fidelity from both of us. With the school year underway, as I drove the 2 older kids home, a small red sports car arrived at our entrance. A remarkable pair of legs emerged, followed by the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen. The children excitedly ran up to her, shouting, "Aunt Helen!" She hugged them and fussed around, while young Helen welcomed her at the door. I poured her favorite drink, seltzer, and informed her that Erica would arrive soon. I mentioned preparing a high-calorie salad, concluding with, "But that's a completely different story." I'm David, age 56, sharing my life for the first time. I'm married to Erica, age 45, and we have a 13-year-old daughter. This recount is from a few months ago. My wife, our daughter, and I were in Istanbul with a large group of 3 families totaling around 16 people. As our trip concluded, we gathered at Istanbul airport for our collective return to Chicago with an 11-hour flight ahead. We conducted a group accounting session. Unexpectedly, our flight faced a 6-hour delay. Utilizing the time, we all headed to the lounge, finding it surprisingly empty. We were the sole occupants, engaging in lively conversation, sharing smiles, and reliving tales of Turkey and its delectable cuisine. Taking a brief smoke break, I returned after 15 minutes, walking towards my wife. Spotting a slender figure near her, my heart raced not due to nicotine, but an intense surge of emotions. The closer I got, the more my heart raced, transporting me back 2 decades to a moment of holding hands in a church, saying "I do," and embarking on a shared life. Suddenly, I snapped back to the lounge, informing my wife of my need for fresh air before walking out without acknowledging the woman talking to her. Outside, memories flooded back, bringing me to moments with Maria in Columbus, Georgia, by the Chattahoochee River. Closing my eyes, I revisited our love story from college to marriage. Maria, my life, has been the object of my affection since our college days. We married, moved in together, and embarked on a promising married life. My journalism career and her role as a financial expert led to frequent travels, yet we maintained our connection. Maria's sparkling eyes brightened my days, and when at home, our time was filled with love and delicious meals she prepared. The initial 2 years of marriage were seamless, with no signs of trouble in paradise. We postponed having children to establish ourselves professionally. Our only challenge was the limited time we could spend together due to our demanding jobs. Travel became a constant, even for Maria. The sole point of contention was my mother living alone and desiring frequent visits. My wife harbored a dislike for her, and although I never probed the reasons, I endeavored to keep them apart, maintaining a delicate balance between them. In January, my mother became ill, and I informed my wife that I would care for her. She wasn't pleased, since I had just returned from covering a story in Iraq. We argued because she wanted me to hire help for my mother instead of going myself. I explained that my mother is old, and this might be the last time I see her alive. Maria was unhappy, but I ignored it. 3 days later, my mother died in my arms, leaving me devastated. After her burial, I returned home, and Maria once again complained about my mother. I was shocked and couldn't understand her point. She caused so much trouble, insisting that the deceased person should have been in the hospital from the start. I remained silent, trying to comprehend it all. "Why is Maria criticizing a deceased person?" I retorted, but she shut me down, saying the person wouldn't respond, so I should zip it. That led to a week of silence between us. To break the ice, I took her out for dinner, and that night we shared intimacy. Things seemed better, but I had to go to Afghanistan to cover the historic Silk Road. In my absence, Maria earned promotions and a higher salary. When I returned 2 weeks later, everything had changed. Coming home, Maria greeted me warmly, but during dinner, she seemed tense. She said we needed changes in our lives. "What changes do you want?" I asked. She expressed the challenges of my frequent and prolonged absences, longing for my touch. Maria gave me 2 options: find a job near her or find her a job to travel with me. Torn but relieved by her honesty, I agreed to find another job. Closing the topic, the next morning I resigned and got a local job at the TV channel, even though it paid less. When I told Maria about the 30% reduction in my salary, she was angry. I explained the trade-off for a stationary job, but she resisted, upset about the decreased contribution and its impact on her lifestyle. It was a tough situation, but I was committed to making it work. We continued like that, and over the next 3 months, things deteriorated. We talked less, and nights lacked intimacy. Her demeanor shifted from a loving wife to a nagging presence. She found faults in everything, and not a single day passed without going to bed angry. It got so bad that one night, she asked me to stop breathing as my breath disturbed her sleep. A few days later, my phone went missing, prompting me to use my wife's phone to call mine. Surprisingly, her phone was locked, which was unusual since I never had a lock on mine, and she never did either as far as I knew. This raised suspicions about why her phone had a lock. Was she hiding something? On a Thursday night, she returned from a late-night party with her office friends, appearing disheveled in a black dress with no lipstick. When I asked what happened, she explained she danced too much and was tired. Helping her to the bedroom, I noticed a bruise on her left thigh, and she wasn't wearing panties, which was out of character for her. Unable to sleep that night, I became determined to uncover the truth. As a journalist, my instinct was to investigate. Although I knew many people who could assist, I preferred handling it on my own. 3 weeks later, I found myself outside Motel 6 on Victory Drive at 2:30 p.m., having tracked Maria's car there. Approaching room 12, I unlocked the door and discovered a monitor displaying my wife in a compromising position with her blonde lover, Steve Bowman, an old college foe who had always admired Maria. My tears had ceased, leaving me emotionally numb. The pain in my heart was overwhelming. After 3 weeks of relentless investigation, breaking the door and acting impulsively crossed my mind. But I had promised the motel manager no violence a condition for his assistance in setting up recording devices in the room. Despite the manager's restriction, violence remained an option. Outside the motel, I left with a smile, got into my car, and parked behind Steve's Mustang. Armed with an ice pick, I punctured all 4 tires, patiently waiting for what would unfold next. After an hour, Steve emerged, holding Maria by her exposed waist, an image I captured on camera. I returned my camera to its place and stepped out of my truck, approaching them directly. Maria remained silent, appearing as if she had seen a ghost, while Steve wore a sinister grin, reveling in taking another man's wife. Keeping his grip on her waist, I observed Maria's feeble attempt to free herself. Upon noticing me, she greeted and questioned my unexpected presence. I stared back, not uttering a word. In an effort to explain, she insisted that she could clarify, emphasizing that it wasn't what I might be thinking. In response to her explanation, my retort came with my gaze fixed on Steve's hand on her waist, stating that I was not thinking, just observing. With a smile, I made a remark suggesting that Steve might have taken away my wife. Maria denied any wrongdoing, explaining that their interaction was part of a meeting they had at that location. My response was cynical, pointing out that the meeting seemed to involve unconventional activities. I asked if Steve had satisfied her, prompting a gasp from Maria as she recalled her recent words. A warning followed, stating that all her actions were on video and would be sent to her office, reaching friends, family, Linda, and her dad. Steve interjected, shouting a plea to leave Linda out of the situation. Dismissing his request, I added that Linda had every right to be involved, since her husband was involved with my wife, creating a lot of unfinished business. Maintaining a smile, I continued, mentioning that Linda had already witnessed their actions and was eagerly awaiting the video copy to file for divorce. I suggested that in their situation, preparing to say goodbye to their beloved Mustang might be wise, as it would be sold to settle the lawsuit. Furious, Steve lunged at me a big mistake. Considering my years of travel to places like Iraq and Afghanistan, I had been among warriors and fighters, learning a few tricks along the way. Blocking his right hand, ducking forward, I landed a left on his chin, causing him to drop like a bag of potatoes. He struggled to get up, wobbling towards me, only to receive an uppercut that left him unconscious. Maria stood there, horrified, and I instructed her to get in the truck. We didn't go home. Instead, we headed straight to my lawyer. Ignoring Maria's inquiries, I gestured for her silence. In the lawyer's office, we were directed to the large conference room and took seats on opposite sides of the table. The atmosphere was tense until Ron, my lawyer, entered and handed an envelope to Maria. He explained the terms, stating that the divorce had been filed based on irreconcilable differences. There was no shared property, and the legal transfer of his mother's house hadn't occurred, so she couldn't claim it. He informed her that she would receive half the money from the joint account, which she could withdraw, since she earned more. There was no alimony. Ron concluded the discussion and left the room. Maria clutched the envelope and directed her gaze at me. Breaking the silence, I warned her that if she contested the divorce, I'd alter the grounds to infidelity, ensuring widespread exposure of her infidelity on all social media platforms. I threatened to send the evidence to her office, leading to termination, and vowed to follow her if she fled to another city, making her life a perpetual fear of tarnished reputation. After she nodded in understanding, I stood up and left. Maria, however, spoke up, questioning if I wanted to know why she acted as she did. She explained that I desired a lifestyle she couldn't provide, seeking luxury without understanding the sacrifices. According to her, the blonde lover fulfilled those desires temporarily, but he was already married and merely seeking cheap entertainment. Maria questioned how long such happiness would last, anticipating a cycle of seeking new lovers. She concluded by pointing out my present situation, with only an envelope in hand. Her parting words wished me a nice day. Months later, I encountered her in court during the divorce proceedings. We never exchanged words, only receiving the court's orders granting the divorce. Steve, her lover, never filed a complaint against me, as cameras in the parking lot would have shown him as the aggressor. I sent Linda the videos and evidence of Steve's infidelity, leading to their divorce and rumors of Steve facing consequences from Linda's brothers. Linda's father, connected and vengeful, wanted to punish Maria, but Linda intervened. I changed jobs and eventually returned to my old position in a different city. Life moved forward, and at Istanbul airport, I found myself a chief journalist with ample wealth, a faithful wife, and a wonderful daughter. Back in the airport lounge, my wife continued conversing with Maria for hours. Staying away, I observed their interaction, concerned about Maria's intentions. Later, I confirmed our departure time with airport officials. Boarding the flight after a challenging wait, I sat beside my wife, who displayed a different smile. Curious, I inquired about her discussion with Maria. She revealed she was expressing gratitude to Maria for her mistakes, which led her to find me. Surprised, I asked if Maria had disclosed this information. My wife clarified that Maria never mentioned me but shared court orders and investigative materials found in the attic. When I asked about their conversation, my wife downplayed it, stating she listened to Maria's regrets about missing her ex-husband and her desire for a life like mine. I smiled, closed my eyes, and settled back into my chair. Well, folks, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the content as much as I enjoyed making it. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment below with your thoughts and tell me your stories. I'd love to hear them. Cheers, and see you in the next one.